We are now in the last round of the league stages when it comes to the T20 World Cup 2022 from Group 1 and Group 2. Group 1 is indeed a very, very close group. Unlike Group 2, where India and South Africa look to be the only two teams to make it to the semi-finals. But Australia, New Zealand, England and even now Sri Lanka, they all stand a chance to qualify with 2 spots at stake. Australia, the 2021 defending T20 champions, are on the brink and they could face an early exit. England, on the other hand, they have a pretty tough match, while New Zealand could quietly sneak into the semi-finals in their own laid-back fashion. But Group 1 is an absolute thriller, and what each team must do to enter that is a big question, because the only team from that group that has been officially eliminated is Afghanistan. But such has been the intensity of this league stages in the 2022 T20 World Cup that we have had to wait until the last round to still determine who are our 2 semi-finalists. So, this is the situation. New Zealand with 5 points plus 2.2 net run rate, that will be the clincher for them. England 5 points plus 0.547, but look at Australia's predicament. That loss that they had against New Zealand in the opening game of the Super 12s has really hurt them, minus 0.304, and they were not helped by 2 other factors, which I'll come to it later. Sri Lanka are still in it, despite losing heavily to New Zealand and Australia. They're still in it, but their next clash is a very, very tough one. Ireland, mathematically they are still in, but very, very faint. That is how high the stakes are in this tournament. As I mentioned, Afghanistan, the only team to have been eliminated, so they are out of the equation. Australia, the defending champions, will take on Afghanistan on November 4th in Adelaide. But they are facing the worst situation of them all. They must beat Afghanistan. There are no 2 ways about it. And the worst part is, Australia's match takes place before the England encounter that will happen. So England have a double advantage of knowing what they have to do when it comes to net run rate and also about the victory margin. There is a mathematical calculation that is going around that if Afghanistan score 100, Australia have to chase in 5 overs to even better England's net run rate. And whether that will be enough is not sure. If Australia lose to Afghanistan and Adelaide, they are out. They are out of the competition. If Australia win, they have to hope that Sri Lanka beats England and that Ireland also beat New Zealand, because there are 3 teams on 5 points. One is certain to go to 7, provided results go their way. So if Australia wins, they'll get to 7. But for them to qualify, they have to hope that Ireland beat New Zealand and Sri Lanka beat England. That is the only way possible, because if New Zealand beats Ireland, then they'll have to hope Sri Lanka beats England. So in that way, Australia will have to look at a lot of factors to ensure they get into the semi-finals. If they don't, well, then it continues the unhappy trend where defending champions have not done well in the T20 World Cup. That is why you don't have a defending champion. New Zealand, they are probably making the cake and eating it too, because their last league game is against Ireland in Adelaide on November 4th. Why did I make that statement? Because they handed Australia a massive blow when they defeated them by 89 runs in Sydney. They had to do their Trans-Tasman cousins a favor by beating England. They failed to beat England. And that too, the margin of victory was not that great also, 20 runs. So it did not dent their net run rate, but it boosted England's. Australia, on the other hand, they could not achieve a massive win against Ireland. So these 3 factors have ensured New Zealand are rather safe. If they lose to Ireland, they have to hope Afghanistan beats Australia, because Afghanistan, if they beat Australia, Australia will remain on 5. New Zealand with a better net run rate will still make it. Australia win and New Zealand lose, then the Kiwis are out, because New Zealand will remain on 5. Sri Lanka or England win, they will get to 7 or 6 respectively, which is not enough. So if Australia win and New Zealand lose to Ireland, then the Kiwis are out of the tournament. Very, very sad thing to happen if that is the case, because New Zealand started the league stages very promisingly, but they may suffer a dip in momentum at this point in time, which has always been their case. England, probably the best team in this current position to qualify for the semis, but their last league game is very, very tricky. It's against Sri Lanka at the Sydney Cricket Ground. And England and Sri Lanka in past contests in Australia have rather been even Steven. But in a T20 World Cup, potentially England hold the edge. Simple. If England lose to Sri Lanka, they are out, because they'll be struck on 5 points and Sri Lanka will get to 6. Either of Australia or New Zealand are making it to 7. If Australia and New Zealand win, England will rely on NRR. So they'll have to beat Sri Lanka and ensure that net run rate is still in their favor. Although Australia will be gunning to beat Afghanistan by a big margin. If Australia or New Zealand lose and England win, they qualify. Very simple. Either of Australia or New Zealand has to lose their last game to ensure that they go through, because then they'll be the only team to get on 7. So Sri Lanka, which I'm coming to next, could upset the entire apple cart because their game is against England. If Sri Lanka must beat England, if they beat England, then they have to hope Australia or New Zealand lose their last game. Because if New Zealand win, they get to 7. If Australia win, they get to 7. Sri Lanka at best can only get to 6. So they'll have to hope either Afghanistan or Ireland do them a favor. That seems to be very, very problematic, considering that both New Zealand and Australia don't get beaten by minnows that often. But for that situation to happen, Sri Lanka has to beat England. If Sri Lanka lose to England, they are anyways out of the equation. Ireland. Oh boy, how do you think they can still qualify? Because they have not been officially eliminated. 99.99% they'll have to rely on the mathematics because they play New Zealand. Ireland have the worst net run rate in the whole group, minus 1.5. They must beat New Zealand by a massive margin, so they'll get to 5 points. So if they beat New Zealand, they dump them out and their net run rate takes an absolute pounding. But they have to hope that Afghanistan hammer Australia, so that Afghanistan's net run rate, Afghanistan can only get to 4 points. Ireland can get to 5. And for that to happen, one thing should go in their favor also, which I have not mentioned, is that the England-Sri Lanka clash should be rained out. England can only get to 6. New Zealand and Australia, if their net run rate takes a pounding, then Ireland can still go through, but they must beat New Zealand first. Ireland are mathematically still in, although practically we know they are all but out. So that is the situation that we have in Group 1. 4 teams still vying for 2 spots. And only 2 points separate 5 teams. That's as close as it can be. So on November 4th and November 5, the Group 1 league stages will end and we will probably know tomorrow what is Australia's fate going to be. So thank you so much folks for joining us for this special Group 1 analysis. We'll be back with more updates from Sports Today. Press the like, comment and share button. We are also there on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Thank you.